The Dead End by Mason Gilbert. Chapter 1. The End. The note was written and the lights were dim. Valerie's favourite music played, a playlist of all her favourite songs in her short lifetime. Valerie was 17 years old. She lived with her younger brother, Zach, and her mother and father. She didn't have any friends at school. She spent her day skipping class, listening to music and hiding in the bathrooms from everyone. The music played softly, just loud enough to drown out the quiet, but quiet enough to not wake anyone. It was 2:34 a.m. when Valerie downed an unhealthy amount of her anxiety medication, clearly not serving its purpose well, and washed it down with the water that sat by her bed for too many weeks. She slumped there against her wall covered in her personality, posters and art of all sorts. Valerie stared at her ceiling and waited. Poppy floated in the corner of a poor girl's room and watched her contemplate her life. This was her first call out since being hired, and it was not an easy one. They never prepared her for a suicide. She had a whole script planned out. "Welcome to the afterlife. I am Poppy Rose, and I'll be your appointed deathbringer and local tour guide. Don't fear death, you can't run from it. Plus, it's free." But she felt that was maybe a poor choice of words for her line of work. She watched as the life of this girl, Valerie, drained slowly, and thought about when the perfect time to make her entrance would be. It wasn't a wonderful idea, but she couldn't sit and watch a girl her age take her own life. It wasn't right. Poppy took quick breaths of panic, racking her brain for a plan. She turned her brain off and proceeded to do the first logical thing she could think of. "Stop, I'm your tour guide, and this is the afterlife. Don't die, it's free, run!" Poppy blurted out in a completely unremarkable British accent, mixing up her scripts in the process. Valerie stared up at the floating figure, holding its arms out but not close enough to touch her. She stood up with sudden panic and glared at Poppy. "I'm sorry?" "Don't kill yourself. It isn't worth it." "Who are you?" Introductions can wait. Let's get you some help before those pills set in." Valerie's face contorted into annoyance. She moved to her speaker and turned the volume up higher, and without looking away from Poppy, sat back down on the ground, surrounded by her tools of murder. Poppy narrowed her eyes with confusion and began to sputter, flailing her arms around. "What are you doing?" she managed to ask. "Dying," Valerie answered. Poppy hovered down to the ground and kneeled in front of Valerie, placing her translucent hands on her knees. "You shouldn't do this. You have so much to live for." She hesitated for a moment. I don't know you, but we can get to know each other." Valerie's face and tone were deadpan. "I don't. I have nothing going for me. Aren't you meant to be helping me die?" "What? How did you know?" Valerie gestured to Poppy's outfit, a long black dress with a cape and hood. With a dark complexion, it was almost hard to make out minor details of her porcelain face. "Oh, and that," Valerie said, pointing to a name tag that read, "Hello, my name is Poppy, death respondent." Poppy looked down at it, then back to Valerie, and gave a nervous laugh. "It's my first time." She took a breath to organize her thoughts again, and got back on track. "But the point is, Valerie, that you shouldn't be the one to end your life. You could miss out on so much. You don't know what could happen in the next week, or even hour," she continued hopefully. "You could meet the love of your life, get a new pet, a cat that you love for years and years. There are so many possibilities that you will miss, and when you watch someone else fulfill them for you, you're going to want to kill yourself again because of what a stupid decision you made." Poppy paused and thought about what she'd said. "I lied about the last part. You won't want to kill yourself." She gave a reassuring smile, or at least tried. "Yeah, but I could also continue living a meaningless life filled with dread. I could meet the love of my life, and they could cheat on me. I could get a new pet and have it get hit by a car the next day. It's never worth it," Valerie retorted, feeling the effects of her pills start to kick in. Poppy hummed while trying to think of a way to get Valerie on her side. Then she remembered. "Let me show you," she said cheerfully. "I'm about to die. No one could get here in time to save me. An ambulance can't, but I can." "What, are you secretly a doctor?" But Poppy was already putting her plan in motion. Poppy moved Valerie's limbs out of her way and pressed her right hand upon Valerie's heart and her left on her head. She mumbled something quickly, far too fast and quiet for Valerie to pick up. After the chant was uttered, Valerie felt a pain in her chest that fell into her stomach. It felt as if the sun was exploding inside her, while stars ripped at her lungs. Poppy stayed as concentrated as she could, keeping her grasp firmly on Valerie. The pain was becoming unbearable, spreading through Valerie's whole body, causing her to scream. Poppy began to move her hands away from Valerie. She thought it was over, but the pain still stayed. She was just so tired now she couldn't care enough to cry. Then, without warning, the pain began to fade as black and red fog flowed from Valerie's head and heart and seeped into Poppy's palms, rerouting the pain into her body, but she didn't seem to register it apart from a frown. Valerie was paralyzed. She didn't know if it was because of this weird ritual or because she was scared. Then, all at once, it stopped. All the sickly slime had flowed into Poppy's body, and both of them were fine. Poppy stood up and wiped her forehead of sweat that was not there, and Valerie sat still, processing what just happened. "What did you do?" asked Valerie. "I saved your life. Literally." Valerie glared at her, confused, and Poppy returned a blank face. Then it seemed to finally click to her that Valerie did not understand. "Okay, so, I work for Grim Reaper. We deal with the dead, or well, the dying, I suppose. So we sort of have control of who lives or dies. But we usually take those who are dying and don't give them a second chance. So what I did there, all that gross stuff coming out of you, was your living cells and neurons. I took out all of you that was alive, and now you're left like this." She displayed her hands as if showing off Valerie like a doll. "So, I still died." Poppy made noises while thinking of how to phrase her words. "Kind of? You're in a state of purgatory. You definitely aren't dead, but you're also not fully alive. You're closer to the dead than you are to the living, but you are also kind of alive, just not fully. Like, a lot less alive than you are dead." "But you aren't very dead." Valerie cut her off. "Yeah, I get it." "Oh, good." Valerie stood up and went to stumble to her bed before tripping over something on her floor. She twisted around to see what had gotten in her way and scrambled back in horror, trying to stay quiet. "What is that?" Valerie questioned in a hushed tone. She sat staring at her own corpse, limp and drooling from where she sat. "It's you! What, have you never looked in a mirror?" Poppy joked. "Yeah, no, I have, but I'm here. Why am I there too?" "Well, we take your soul, not your body, so that stays there for our friends at the morgue," Poppy answered calmly, like it was almost normal to see double of one person, one of them being a corpse. Valerie rose up, not taking her eyes off herself. She studied her own body. Seeing it from a third-person view made everything look so much more different. She went to look at her own body to compare it to the lifeless one on the ground when she realized she now had a soft blue and purple glow. It was pretty but jarring. Poppy clasped her hands. "So, are you coming to see your butterfly or what?" Valerie turned to look at her, puzzled. "My what?" "Your butterfly. Everyone has one." Valerie stood there, confused again. Poppy rolled her eyes. "Okay, so, do you play video games?" "Yeah." "Have you heard of the butterfly effect? Like, when you make a choice in the game and in the corner it tells you that the character will remember what you did and all that?" "The butterfly effect isn't just for video games." "Shh, I know, but you're young, so it makes sense to put it in a way you understand." Valerie narrowed her eyes, but Poppy ignored her. "But you can only see it once you have left the living, so that's why I took your alive bits, so you could come to the dead end and see your life, for lack of a better phrase, flash before your eyes." Valerie thought for a moment. Maybe this was just a weird effect of the pills making her hallucinate, a weird way of her mind coping with a life slipping from her grasp. Was she going to follow this weird person into the afterlife? Was she going to stay here and let her family find her dead in the morning? Was she going to scream for help and get an ambulance here as soon as possible? "Is it worth it?" Valerie finally asked. "It's always worth it," Poppy answered with a smile. Valerie figured that if this was a weird death dream, she might as well enjoy it while it lasted. If she really was going to see her life flash before her eyes, she couldn't really say no. "All right," said Valerie, half content. Poppy jumped a little with pure happiness. "You won't regret this," she said cheerfully. Valerie didn't answer. Poppy hovered around Valerie's crowded room again, looking for the scythe she had dropped. She found it and picked it back up. Poppy grasped it firmly with both hands and took a deep breath. Keeping her grip, she twisted it and carved through the air, creating a rip in the middle of the room. Valerie imagined what she would see through it. A vast, burning landscape, people being tortured, screaming for mercy, gags in their mouths and being whipped by the devil himself. A bit of an odd last touch, but it's what she was told. Instead, she looked through the crack separating the living and the dead, and saw a ruined city, claimed by Mother Nature as hers. Crumbled buildings were covered in a soft yellow lighting that felt artificial, but once Valerie followed Poppy through the makeshift door, she felt the warmth of the sun buzz on her skin like when she used to go to the beach. "Welcome to the dead end," Poppy declared, closing the portal behind them.